Okay, my little guy, I gotta start streaming, okay? I gotta start streaming, okay? I know, you want all the pets and the love. I know, it's all you want in the world. It's all you want in the world, but I'm streaming, okay? I'm streaming. Guys, I got a little pug down here, and he is seriously, straight up, just like, hey, I could just love you, you know? That's all we could do with our lives right now, is we could love one another, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Ding, 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 ding. Wouldn't that be nice? Ba 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 ba. Wouldn't that be nice? Do 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 do. Wouldn't that be nice? Do 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 do. Checking that I'm streaming. I certainly am. I hope you're doing well out there. Ba 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 dum. Quiet day today, man. Quiet day today. I haven't been doing my walk around the park this week. Honestly, I just need a break. I feel like I just need a vacation, you know? I feel like all I've been doing is working and working and going and going and just I really do feel like I just need to take a walk into the wilderness and kind of just chill out, right? Just kind of chill out. Oh, one thing I wanted to search up. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that I didn't actually search this up. So we'll do it right now while there's no one around. Hey Eric, how you doing, bud? Good. Mocked, good to see you. Cat ear headphones are counter-revolutionary. You want to expand on that, Mocked? Cat ear headphones are counter-revolutionary. Good to know. Neom, Saudi Arabia. So apparently Saudi Arabia, yeah, they just released, I saw a video about this. They just released their City of the Future, right? I've been talking about Neom for a little while now. Good to see you, Major. Good to see you, Tinker. I've been talking about Neom for a little while now. This is the City of the Future, but this is the first time that they're actually showing the structure of it and the piece of it, right? And the way that they're pitching this idea, this City of the Future, is that it's going to be a vertical city, right? So you can see this picture here really shows it, right? That the city is actually long and along a stretched kind of level. Excuse me. Oh my God. Oh. Yeah, I wonder how many slaves will die to build that garbage. Yes, thank you, Tinker, grounding us in reality. Also, one of the things that's not going to ever get talked about with Neom, right, is why are they doing this? Like, what's the idea with this city? The way they're structuring it, the way they're building it, the way they're doing this, okay? I am more or less, I'll get to that, Compton. I'm more or less of the opinion that what they're doing is they're building a superstructure to protect the rail and to protect the rail system because they are anticipating, rightly or wrongly, but they're preparing for a war in the region, right? And I've been saying it for a long, long time. So let's go to the location. Where is this city to be built? I know, buddy. I love you too. I love you too. I got a pug who's just all up in my business. Neom's going to be right over here. It's going to be in this region, right? The reason this city is being built is so that the Chinese can get the Belt and Road Initiative underneath, likely, the Gulf of Aqaba into Egypt to connect to the Suez Canal, and that they can sidestep Israel. That's the reason this city is being built. And so the purpose of creating this long, narrow city, right, it makes sense once you realize that, oh, there's going to be a rail running through the region, right? So instead of having to create a large distribution chain from the rail into a sprawling urban kind of thing, their plan is to build it upwards and to build it basically directly on the rail. And then, of course, to use the rail system as an internal transit system. It's actually quite like, what have I been telling you guys this whole time about the Saudis, man? The Saudis are Machiavellian geniuses. Like, they understand power better than anyone else on the planet. They understand power better than anyone else on the planet. They're always on the right side. They always know where to go. They when they are confronted with a problem and there's a solution that seems insurmountable, they surmount it. They're evil geniuses. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not defending them from a human rights record position or any of that. But in terms of navigating geopolitical power, as well as maintaining internal domestic power, they're geniuses. They're geniuses. There's so much that countries could learn from Saudi Arabia by understanding why they make the decisions they make, and what's most impressive about Saudi Arabia is that they're not getting caught in the same trap that America is getting caught in. That America is getting caught in, well, I'm rich because fossil fuels, so fossil fuels, right? Saudi Arabia is like, we're rich because of fossil fuels, but we've got to move into another thing, and there's a whole other thing going on here, right? That vision really counts. And Saudi Arabia really shows that that's the case. That if you have a vision of the future, and if you understand what tomorrow will bring, you can do some really fucking cool shit. Now, this is being presented to us as like a glittering, glowing city, right? Which, obviously, if you ask me, the reflective surface and all that kind of stuff is being designed to reflect away sun rays, right? They're building a bunker. That's what this thing is. They're building a bunker, right? Yep, they spent $200 billion on genocide in Yemen. It is genius. Sorry, Tinker. Like, it's evil. I'm not defending them. But it's the right, like, in terms of maintaining their power as princes, as a monarchy, yeah, it's the right thing to do for them, to maintain their power. Like, this is the thing. Like, once you accept that power is their aim, like, they're not like the United States. They're not taking out a gun and shooting themselves in the leg. They're not shooting themselves in the arm and the shoulder, right? When they do things, it's to secure power for themselves, and it works, right? Is it evil? Yes. Does it work? Yes. Like, 200-300 years from now, right, the United States is going to be this fractious, ridiculous nonsense place, and Saudi Arabia is going to be ruled by Saudi princes and Saudi kings. It's going to be a monarchy still, because they understand how to build this shit and to do it and to maintain it. They understand how power works, and they understand what to do to maintain power. Like, they're very, 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 very good at what they do. They fund it. No, I'm never going to defend them from a human rights perspective, right? Like, you keep trying to bring it back into, like, they're evil, John. How can you say these things? I agree with you. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I agree with you. What they've done was horrible. The genocide that they're committing in Yemen is horrible. I'm not defending them on that level. I'm not even defending them. I'm stating simply and clearly that what they do to maintain power, and it works. That's it. That's the extent of my statement, right? That unlike the United States, where they're experiencing an enormous backlash and an enormous blow up, and it's gonna blow up in their faces, right? Everybody can see it, that there's this blowback happening in the United States, right? That's not happening in Saudi Arabia, right? Quite the opposite, in fact. So please do not mistake me, Tinker. I am not saying Saudi Arabia is the place we need to aspire to be. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in the Game of Thrones, right, There are those who play well and those who do not. And Saudi Arabia plays well. Are they evil? Of course. Are they winning? Yes. Both of those things can be true. And this Project Neom is case in point, right? That they're pitching this to the world as like this future city, this glittering kind of thing. Oh, and this is true too, Tinker. You're right about this. The Iranians have done a very good job, right? The fact that Iran still stands, that they didn't get invaded during that whole period of time, you're absolutely right. The Iranians did a lot of good wheeling and dealing and figuring shit out, right? And what's going to be interesting to see moving forward in terms of the politics of the region is how these two forces square the circles, right? Because like Iran and Saudi Arabia have been at odds with one another for a little while now. But it looks like Saudi Arabia's come to terms with the reality that we know where the true power center is now, right? Like everybody's pivoting to Asia one way or another, whether that's through military antagonism or whether that's through recognition and trade. And it looks like Saudi Arabia is simply accepting that it is better. If you can't beat them, join them. Right? And it looks like Saudi Arabia is making the pivot. And this is why I say what they do is brilliant, right? Like for forever they were with the Americans and they were siding with the Americans, and that's how they maintain their position in the region, right? One of the biggest allies in the region for the longest time was America. And now it looks like they've pivoted over to China, right? I need some commie talk today. You need commie talk every day, Danarchist. I mean, your name is Danarchist, for God's sakes. The Saudis can't make a glass tower by themselves without foreign architects or slave labor. Iran can make their on plutonium research reactor. All right, Tinker's got like strong feel, like real, like you want me to stand here and be like, do not disparage Iran. I will not, sir. I will definitely. Mocked is saying railway is very important, and some historians believe that Tsar Nicholas, the first St. Petersburg-Moscow railway initiative, was one of the determining factors of the Battle of Moscow in 1941. Oh yeah, well, look at the history of Canada. The Trans-Canada Rail was instrumental in unifying the nation and getting people out into the prairies and onto the west coast, right? No, like this is why what's happening in America in regards to their mass transit system, like while China is literally building like a high-speed rail system, not only within their own borders but all across the continent, and now building it towards Neom, right over here, in order to subvert Israel, and they are going to protect it with a literal wall, like a bunker, right? Because they, like, the Saudis understand full well how important this piece of infrastructure is going to be for the future. Like, this is the future of Saudi Arabia. Like, they are going to be the corridor for China to get into Africa. Right? Like, incredible. That's an incredibly powerful. And, like, think of the wealth generation. Even if you take, like, 0.1% of any trade that goes through that, you're going to be a trillionaire. Like, the Saudis are geniuses, man. Like, it's so smart. I didn't actually look at my Discord, so I'm not going to open up my Discord right now. Just for reasons. Next time. And besides, I've got a lot of articles here, bud. We're going to go through. What the hell was I talking about? Oh, yeah. Neom. This piece of infrastructure. And, like, what do I think of Pelosi's trip to Taiwan? It's the Americans wagging their dick again. Like, that's it. It's just the Americans going to China and being like, I'm the American. That's it. That's all it is. It's just the classic American antagonistic dick waving. Nothing new. Like, nothing new. Right? Like that's the thing that's the reason why I don't really like. Hold, I haven't forgotten you, Compton, by the way. That's the reason why I haven't really made a lot of hay about that trip, because it's nothing new, right? Like it's barely it's barely newsworthy, really. It's just more like, I'm America. Here's my cock. Deal with my cock, because I'm America. And everybody looking at America, drunken with their cowboy hat and cowboy boots, naked in the middle of like a classy formal party, peeing into the fucking punch bowl again, waving their dick around, just being like, yeah, USA, USA, what do you think of that, China? And China basically just standing there and being like, we would prefer you didn't. And China being, and America just being like, yeah, but we are. What are you gonna do about it? And China's basically like, we're just gonna wait until you die, and wait until your society obviously collapses, because it's obviously collapsing. We're now officially. Oh, I had a thing right here. Yep. GDP fell by 0.9% in the second quarter, the second straight decline, a strong recession signal. It's not a strong recession signal. That is actually the definition of a recession. If you have 2 quarters in a row where your GDP declines, you are officially in a recession. That's like, there are many different definitions of a recession, but typically, if you go through 2 quarters of decline, people declare it as a recession. So China is looking over at America that is going into a recession, and there's been an economic slowdown in China as well, which makes sense. It's a very tumultuous time, but it hasn't been a recession. China's done very well moving its pieces around, right? Trying to maintain its system. Yes, in case of Pelosi, it's clit waving. Well done, Danarchist. We have to acknowledge it. Well done. So China is straight up, their response to someone like Pelosi going to Taiwan is, yeah, well, what are you gonna do? Like, really? Like, they wrote a sternly worded letter saying, like, you shouldn't escalate this stuff. But, like, it's all just like, unless the Americans literally move in and start doing serious stuff, or unless Taiwan declares its independence, or something serious happens where it becomes obvious that America is moving like infrastructure, military hardware into Taiwan, China's plan is wait until America is weak enough and wait until our military strength is strong enough that we can surround Taiwan and move a delegation in there. They didn't want to. They didn't want to. Like, China's goal with Taiwan is to end it. They don't want it to look like Ukraine. They don't want it to look like troops going in and big occupation and the headlines and entrenched positions and shots fired and artillery and boats from the sea shooting rockets and shit. Like, that's not what they're into. That's not what they want. They want to be able to just push out, surround with a wall of iron, a blockade, show of force. If you want to fuck with us, you're going to fuck with us, right? And they're going to send a delegation to Taiwan and basically be like, sup, here we are on the beautiful province of Taiwan, here in the glorious country of China. And the Taiwanese leadership, if it has a brain in their head, will go, yes, welcome to the province of Taiwan, here in the glorious country of China. And then both will sign a document saying it is so. And that'll be the end of it. That's what China obviously wants. Like, that's obviously their goal. Right? They super do not want like a big military conflagration. That is absolutely not what they're in for. Right? China should invest and build up the DPRK. That'd be a thumb into the eye to both the US and South Korea, as well as capitalism. I think that's pretty much what they're doing. Like, I think that's right in line. Like North Korea, the relations between North Korea and China seem fairly stable. Like, I think that like if China would love to see a reunification, obviously. I think there are lots of people in Korea that would love to see a reunification. I think that would be good for everybody in that region. And so, of course, the Chinese are completely disinterested in that. Or, sorry, the Americans are completely disinterested in that. They don't want to see a reunification between the Koreans. They want that war to continue ad nauseum forever, right? Because that's how America rolls. And Japan as well. Like, it can't be overstated that Japan is essentially a junior partner of the American empire. Milo, buddy, I know, dude. Come lie down, dude. You've got a chew toy right here. You got a chew toy right here, man. Where'd your chew toy go? Dude, what did you do with your chew toy? This character. No treats. Come lie down. All right. I want China to get Taiwan fully integrated and then dissolve all weird one state, two systems policy and throw all foreign agents and NED members into prison. Yeah, good luck with that one. No, if China is going to make a move like I'm describing, all of those agents would be gone. Like they would leave, right? That's really what would actually happen. Because America knows that this is the case. Like, that's why there's that AUKUS thing going on in the South China Sea, right? They're building nuclear submarines in the South China Sea right now. And it's because they know what China's strategy is. They know that China's strategy is to get enough naval power so that they can surround Taiwan, so that they can really prevent America from getting boats through this passage, right? Like, that's really the truth. That America will, just to piss off the Chinese, America will just drive boats through here, right? And, like, China basically doesn't want that to happen anymore, and so they're going to create, and you'll see it in the news, it'll happen, right? If it happens in our lifetimes, because China does think about these things in, like, big, long-scale ways, and they're happy to do that. Like, they're not like America, they're patient. But if it happens in our lifetimes, it'll be the Taiwan blockade. That's what it'll be. It'll be the Taiwanese blockade, and there'll be stories of ships and all of this kind of stuff surrounding or cutting off. This probably has a name, and I don't know what it is. But suddenly we'll all know what that name is, right? It'll be like the Taiwan Passage or something. Yeah, Japan is the fascist junior partner of the U.S. for sure, dude. And there's no, I don't hear, and this is the thing I think is really the truth. Until China is absolutely positive that it will go down the way that I describe it, they will not do it. That's I think the most important thing about this Taiwan conversation, is that China is not interested in forcing this issue. Right? That they will respond should the issue become forced. So Taiwan declares its independence. America puts a military base on there. America starts... if America does a coup, the way that they did in Ukraine, something like that, yeah, China will respond, for sure. But if none of that happens, and it all kind of just stays as it is, well... eventually, China will surround and just send a delegation, and that'll be the end of it. That's what they want. Like, that's what I would want. I think that's what any leader would want. Except the Americans, obviously. Okay, so, Compton, you said earlier, and Sandman on Netflix, get hype. I don't get hype for things anymore as a rule, on principle, but I gotta tell you, I'm actually hype for Sandman on Netflix. I'll tell you why. Sandman, Netflix. Let's bring up some pictures. Neil Gaiman. Sandman is Neil Gaiman's masterpiece, and there is no other word to use. It is a masterpiece. He has managed to create something that integrates itself into mythology and into spirit and religious conversation in a way that I think is actually quite serious. And he did it in like a DC Comics kind of environment, where he tells the story of the Sandman, Dream, who is one of 7 siblings. And it's like Dream, Desire, Despair. They all have D names. Delight, right? These Destruction, right? And he tells profound, subtle stories through this enormous character who meets figures in like Christian lore like Lucifer, right? Angels, God, these sorts of things. So what I have always respected about Gaiman, even back when I was a fundamentalist Christian, is that he tackled Christianity, and he doesn't really, he considers Christianity to be fair game for this sort of mythological discussion. And as the story goes, someone approached Neil Gaiman with a script for Sandman for a movie. He reads it, throws up, and then bans anyone from showing him a script, even showing him a Sandman script, for a decade. Right? Like, that's the response of an artist. Like, that's the response of an artist. That he's not doing it for money. He's doing it for something bigger. And since then, some of his other work has been used, right? He has permitted other pieces of his work to make the transition from the page to the screen. So some of the, I mean, Coraline was one of the more successful ones. Stardust was another, in the early kind of days. And then most recently was Good Omens, and then American Gods, which unfortunately American Gods fell for the classic capitalist trap, which is let's just pad this shit and start telling more stories or different stories than were in the book so that we can get more seasons out of it. And so it lost its way completely. But the bones were there, right? The first season of American Gods was exquisite. And then season 2, they started to deviate. And by season 3, it was not the same thing at all. And so that was a bit concerning for me. But it definitely was enough to convince Neil Gaiman that now is the time for Sandman. And this is actually exciting. Okay? Like, this is actually exciting. Because Sandman is a piece of genuine, masterful art. Like, it's actually good. And moreover, it's been finished for a while. Like, Sandman, Neil Gaiman completed Sandman like 20 years ago. So it's been completed for a while, and he hasn't allowed it to get made and be put into the artistic space or into the mainstream space. He's been purposefully withholding it because he wants it to be good, and he's not willing to just, and like he doesn't want it to go like the George R.R. Martin route, right? He doesn't want it to go this kind of place where it's like good at first and then it betrays the audience, right? Like this is his thing. This is the reason Neil Gaiman exists. This is the reason why anyone gives a shit about Neil Gaiman at all as an author, is this work. And moreover, this work is his masterpiece. This is his Mona Lisa. This is the thing. And I'm very excited for it because it's also the rare opportunity to tell an adult story. Like, so many of the stories that exist in today's space are children's stories, really. Like, they're just sort of baby stories or childish takes on stories that could otherwise be adult stories. But this is an adult story told by an adult to adults. And if it's told to children, it's told to children with the expectation that it's going to help them grow up. And so I'm very excited to see this come into the mainstream space. I expect it will be largely misunderstood, but it will have a cult following. That's my expectation. And if they betray us like they always betray us, then it's just yet another betrayal. So, but I'll be honest, it's probably the first time in 10 years that I'll actually watch something as it airs. I'm not going to wait for the reviews. I'll actually watch it. So I hope that's enough for you, Cotton, because I'm hype. I hope you're hype. And believe me, I'll be talking about Sandman on this stream, because I think that there are important things in it. There are important things for people to learn about life and themselves and reality and to struggle with. Yeah, I remember reading the graphic novel from my middle school library, not understanding half of it. Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. But that's part of it. Struggling with good art. Like, it's the David Lynch position, right? Don't explain shit to your audience. Let them struggle with it. So many times I watch movies. I think this about Inception. Inception is exactly this, right? That Inception would have been a better movie if they had have just gotten rid of these stupid characters explaining everything to the audience the whole time. Let the audience figure it out, right? Like, literally be like, okay, we're going to go into his dream. And the audience is like, what? And then go into his dream. And then just be there and just deal with it. And don't have somebody being like, oh, we're going to accept into the next level. And what the fuck all that? Let the audience be confused. Let the audience puzzle it out, right? Because if that's how you get intelligent people. That's how you improve people's minds. Let them puzzle it out. Like, and people want to. People want to puzzle things out. People like it. People like it when you are a bit esoteric, and people like it when you're creating a puzzle box. People like that, right? So let them do it. Mystic Werewolf bringing us back to reality. Good to see you, by the way, bud. Why is Ukraine bad and Russia good? It's not Ukraine bad, Russia good. But it is, like... So when you look at the history of the Donbass War, okay, so here's the narrative that exists in the West, right? Let's start from there. This is the Western narrative. Ukraine was sitting there being a totally peaceful, completely normal country, just existing there, trying to make a go of it like the rest of us. And Putin, in his power-mad, Hitler-esque, crazed insanity, decided that he wanted to storm into Ukraine to steal all of its resources and subjugate its people. That's the Western story, right? I present an alternative narrative, one that is rooted in reality, as opposed to this sort of fictitious, made-up bullshit, right? Because if you take a look at even the Western media, all the way back to like 2014 and 15, they were reporting on the fact that Ukraine is the most corrupt nation in Europe. The corruption runs deep in Ukraine. It's run primarily by oligarchs, right? Just like most neoliberal countries. And in 2014, NATO couped the government of Ukraine. Yanukovych, who was the democratically elected leader, elected largely by the Eastern Bloc, which is primarily Russian, ethnic Russian speakers, right? Primarily ethnic Russian, right? People who have friends and family in Russia, right? Remember that Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union for longer than it's been independent, right? And so Yanukovych got couped, right? that the United States government couped the government of Ukraine along with NATO. This is why we're talking about NATO encroachment, right? This is the nice way that leftists in the conversation, people like John Mearsheimer, people like Noam Chomsky, people like Chris Hedges, right? They talk about NATO encroachment so that they don't need to wade into the weeds about the fact that there was a coup, right? And it's the same narrative that happened in Libya. It's the same narrative that's happened across Africa, across South America. It's the Saddam Hussein story, right? Like it's the same narrative again and 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 again. The Americans coup a government and install a government that's friendly to them so that they can get what they want, or what they think they want, right? And so after the coup, right? After the coup, where they installed Yanukovych, then the next guy, I forget his name at the moment, the far right, let's be kind, right? The far right, although that includes groups like the Azov Battalion, who are literal Nazis, but that's fine. They roll into the Donbass region, and they start shelling it. Poroshenko, thank you, Ligandese. So Poroshenko and all the rest, and the far right, who just couped the government, and they admit that they've done so, they roll over to the Donbass region. It's this region here, primarily Russian, ethnic Russian, and they begin shelling the shit out of it. Right? There are documentaries that you can watch, and it's not just Russian documentaries, although the Russian documentaries are very good, right? There's also a French documentary, there's a British documentary, there's a German documentary, right? Like, it's extraordinarily well documented that the Ukrainians rolled over to the Donbass and started shelling it in 2014-15, right? Once this shelling. And there are massacres. There's a massacre in Mariupol, right? They start passing legislation making it illegal for people to speak Russian, right? Which that's a hallmark of genocide and ethnic cleansing, right? And then in the midst of this war, and that's what it is. It's a war. A war of aggression of the Ukrainians onto the people of the Donbass. There's an election held, and Zelensky wins the election. He's a stand-up comedian, right? He wins the election based on ending this war, which shows you that the Ukrainian people themselves don't want this conflict to be happening, right? Because he's elected on that platform. But then what happens? He rolls over to the front line. He says, let's stop this, we're going to withdraw the troops, and the military says, get fucked. So Zelensky is not actually important. That's the thing that I think is not really well understood. Zelensky serves one purpose in this conversation, and that purpose is that any document he signs will have credibility. That's the bare bones truth about Zelensky. No one listens to him. No one cares what he has to say. No one in Ukraine, he has no real he has power, obviously, as legislative authority, but he's not really the one leading the show. And since the war has started, it's become impossible to hide the corruption that exists within Ukraine. Zelensky's government bans literally all left opposition from running in the legislature, so any Communist Party, Social Democratic Party, even liberal parties, and that includes the leaders of the opposition. Okay? These are not small parties with one seat or something that gets chased out of parliament. He literally banned the next largest party in the legislature. Right? So that's corruption. That's huge level corruption. Did he ban the literally open Nazi party? No. There's a Nazi party in the parliament. They have 2 seats and growing, right? Did he ban them? No. No, he banned the communists and the social democrats and the liberals, right? So it's not Russia good, Ukraine bad, but there is definitely aggressors, right? There's definitely like an aggressor. And so the question I always ask everybody when we get to this point is, what's Putin supposed to have done? Right? Let's turn the eye on Putin during all of this. So the entire time that this is happening, Putin is like, yo, let's not do this. Can we not do this? Right? Let's sign the Minsk agreements. Let's sign something that so we can come to peaceful terms. Let's not go to war. Right? He has Nazis shelling Russians on his border. Do I have to remind you about the history of Nazis in the Soviet Union? History of Nazis and the Russians? Right? 26 million people killed by the Nazis. And he's got Nazis on his border shelling Russians. And so what's happening to Putin? There's a huge upswell of opposition to his government and the government in action saying, do something about this. His own people are screaming for him to intervene. Right? So what's Putin supposed to have done? What's Putin supposed to have done? This is the question that I've never gotten an answer to, because it's a question that nobody actually wants to genuinely confront. Right? They'd rather hide in their little sort of made-up fairy tale narratives, right? And fantastical kind of dream world shit, where Putin is just a madman and he's after the resources and all this kind of stuff. They don't want to acknowledge, like, no, there's like reality in front of your face. Like, he's got Nazis shelling Russians right on his border, right? And like, if I was living, so I live in Toronto. Let's go. I live here, and if there was Nazis, right, killing people in Rochester, right, and the governor of New York was complicit and just allowing it to happen or powerless to stop them, I would be saying to my leadership, bro, like, what the fuck? I would be expecting them to do, like, why are we funding this military? What's this military for? Right? What's this military for? And so what we find ourselves in right now with this situation in Ukraine is that Ukraine is being destroyed over it, right? It's being destroyed over it. It's going rah for war, right? Something like 85% of Ukrainians refuse to accept a settlement that includes land loss. Russia already owns this territory. It has no sign of giving it back. It will never give this territory back. Like, this is going to become either part of Russia or it will become its own independent states. A series of independent states, I think, right? And that includes this territory down here, by the way, Odessa, right? All of this stuff up until the river, right? All of this. So is it going to be like one big thing, or is it going to be a series of states? And if I was Putin, I would break it up into several different states, right? That's what I would want to do, right? And make it a political quagmire. And in the meantime, Putin is pivoting over to China, right? Russia's pivoting over to China. The ruble has rebounded completely. It's recovered. It's actually stronger than it was before the war started. Good evening, Anemone. How you doing? So there's no, like, who's suffering? It's not Russia. Russia seems to have bounced back, right? Ukraine is definitely, like, being turned into a complete and total shithole over it. It's being destroyed. And the European nations who are reliant on Russian gas are going to freeze. Who won? Who's winning this? Yeah, Zelensky silences his opponents, but Putin, on the other hand, kills his opponents. Just saying. I mean, you're talking about. I forget his name too. There is a political, like a CIA asset, basically, who they make a lot of hay about. Oh, he's silencing his critics and all that kind of stuff. I'm not seeing a whole lot of evidence that Putin like bans political parties, right? He's not like wiping away entire political parties, right? Like that you got to leave that for the Ukrainians. Conservatives and liberals are always willing to ally with Nazis against the left. Yeah, absolutely, dude. That's the whole shtick, right? That's liberals will bend the knee. I know, I love you too, buddy. I know, Nazis. During the Winter War between Finland and the USSR, the Finnish lost twice as many troops, as well as Karelia, and to this day, 83 years later, they still pretend that the USSR was humiliated in that war. Yeah, sound familiar? Well, I've been saying that all along, man. That when Putin decides that he's taken all the territory he's going to take, right? And he's not going to push in anymore and all that kind of stuff, and they've got the territory secured and all of that, America will declare a victory. Nobody said Putin is innocent, but he built Russia back up with a decent military and economy compared to the 90s. Yeah, I mean, Putin is an interesting figure, right? Like, he's an interesting figure during this period of time. And I think the Russian people will view him as an important transitory figure. And that they will consider him to be far more important than Khrushchev and Gorbachev and Yeltsin and all those guys, right? That Putin, I mean, his decision to invade Georgia, right? His decision to engage in Georgia alone, right, was a stand up to the Americans in the first place. Which, if I'm the Russians, I'm a big fan, right? Admit it, you think Putin might restore the Soviet Union, that's why you're supporting him? No, I don't think Putin's going to restore the Soviet Union. I don't think that's his goal at all. I think that there are people within Russia who want to do that. I think that that's true. And I think that the leaders of the opposition in Russia are interested in doing that. But I don't think that's Putin's game. I think Putin's too old for that, honestly. Like, he's 60-something now, right? Yeah, Putin is a capitalist oligarch, right? Like really, like, and genuinely, like, if the Americans had have said yes to Russia joining NATO, I think Putin would have been much happier with that. Really, I think Putin would have been like, "Oh, good, we're part of the international community," right? His pivot to China and his pivot here into all of this is from necessity more than anything, right? Which isn't to say that Russia had bad relations with China, certainly not, right? But it wasn't his first choice, really. Like, I think that's exactly right. They wanted to break, and they still do. They want to break up Russia, like Yugoslavia, like, for sure. And it's still on the table. It's still their goal, right? So, Navalny, that's the guy. Yeah, Navalny. Yeah, I mean, people sort of look at Navalny and there is no critical analysis of who is this guy? Who is this Navalny, right? And anytime I look into him, I'm just like, oh, like, you look like a CIA asset here, bud. Like, yeah, like, I would probably arrest you too. Like, no, you're not going to foment discontent in the fucking country and organize a coup and a color revolution. Like, no, you're not going to do that. Zelensky is Jewish. Why would those Nazis fight for a Jew leader? They're not fighting for a Jew leader. I think that's important to remember. Again, to these Nazis, Zelensky is unimportant. I think you've really got to understand this. Okay? This is really key to understand. The military in Ukraine does not give a fuck what Zelensky thinks. At all. They do not give a fuck what Zelensky thinks. That if Zelensky began to actually cause them any problems or get in their way, they would kill him. Like, it's not like Zelensky standing up and being like, ah, yes, my military, do this. And they go, yes, sir. No. No. They don't care what Zelensky says. They don't listen to him. They don't follow his rules. That, like, to them, they're like, oh, you got elected. Okay. Putin is using Nazis in Ukraine as an excuse to justify his disgusting war crime invasion. I mean, there are Nazis in Ukraine. Like, the Azov battalion alone should show you that there are Nazis in Ukraine. Like, we have people like Russell Bentley, right? Like, we've got eyewitnesses on the ground. We have footage from Ukrainian funerals where they are flying the SS flag. Like, there are Nazis in Ukraine, dude. There's a party in parliament that is openly Nazi. Like, you've got to accept this. Like, and this is something that I think lots of people refuse to accept. There are Nazis in Ukraine. That the Stepan Bandera movement, which is an explicitly Nazi movement. Stepan Bandera was a Nazi collaborator. He helped the Nazis create concentration camps in Ukraine. The Stepan Bandera movement in Ukraine is real. It is larger than you'd like it to be. They have seats in parliament. The leader of the country is banning left opposition but leaving the Nazi parties alone. These Nazis have gone to an ethnic Russian region and started shelling it. Like, if you just dismiss the reality that there are Nazis, like if you just go, yeah, Nazis, and just hand wave them away, like Westerners do, then you can make up any narrative you like. That's the fundamental truth of this issue. As long as you pretend as though it's acceptable that there's an active Nazi party in parliament with seats, that there are ministers in positions of power who have ties to this Nazi party, that there is a Stepan Bandera movement, which is an explicitly Nazi movement. There is an Azov battalion, which is the only officially integrated military battalion that is openly Nazi on the planet, is in Ukraine. As long as you take all of those facts and you just go, yeah, everybody's got Nazis, then you can say anything you like. You don't need to engage with reality. You don't need to engage with what's true. You don't need to be an adult or be a grown-up. You can just say what you like. And just be like, it's just an excuse. Right? This isn't a bunch of, like, truckers shutting down a bridge. This isn't like a bunch of yahoos storming the White House. Right? This is a highly organized, highly integrated political movement that already has seats in parliament and is surviving purges by the current leadership. They already have battalions officially integrated into the military. At what point do we take this seriously? At what point do we actually admit that there is a concerning Nazi movement in Ukraine? Where's the line for you? For me, we're already well past it. Oh, you've allowed a battalion that is openly Nazi to officially be integrated in your military. It's over. It's over. Oh, you've allowed a Nazi to take a seat in your parliament. It's over. It's over. All bets are off. I don't know why I have to explain over and over and over and over and over again why Nazis are bad. And I don't understand why anyone should consider themselves a serious person looking at Nazis in a parliament and a Nazi battalion in the military and go, that's fine. That's totally fine. Everybody has Nazis. That's fine. No, it isn't. If my country of Canada integrated a Nazi battalion into its military, I would say on this channel, openly, until they removed me physically by force, that we are a Nazi country that has been taken over by Nazis. Because if you let one Nazi battalion, or if you let one member of parliament be a Nazi, this is a Nazi country. We are permitting Nazism. There's no such thing as accepting a little bit of Nazism in the halls of power and in your military. I don't know why this needs to be explained. That's the most shocking part about this. I don't understand why anyone needs this to be explained to them. And certainly for the Russians. Certainly for the Russians. The Nazis massacred and murdered in a war of aggression, a brutal campaign of aggression that forced the Russians to completely reconfigure their entire economy, to engage with the Germans in brutal strategies that ground them down, lost 26 million people. That's almost the entire population of Canada. Lost 26 million people fighting Nazis, and you're gonna stand there and say to me and expect to be taken seriously that it is completely acceptable for Nazis to overthrow the government of Ukraine, to install leadership, to go to an ethnic Russian area and begin bombing Russians there with a battalion that is explicitly and openly Nazi. It is time to grow up. I don't accept it. Not even a little. What's Putin supposed to have done? Allow Nazis to kill Russians? I think he would have faced an internal revolution if he had have done it. That's the other part of this no one actually wants to address. The citizens of Russia are in favor of this war. It didn't happen because Putin's power mad. It happened because the Russians have a history with Nazis and have a history of defeating Nazis. And when they see Nazis killing Russians for 8 years on their fucking border, they expect their leadership to do something about it. And if Putin's response was, we're just gonna let Nazis, it's not a problem, everybody has Nazis, he wouldn't be the leader of Russia for much longer. And they would have installed somebody who would have done exactly this. You can't do this shit. You can't do this shit and just expect Russia to stand by and do nothing. Like, this is a baffling conversation to me. This is a terrifying, actually. This hand-waving of open Nazism in the country of Ukraine. Because if you're gonna do it to Ukraine, you're gonna do it here. When it starts happening here, you're gonna do the same thing. Oh, it's just one Nazi. Oh, it's just one Nazi battalion. If you're gonna do it there, you're gonna do it here. Unacceptable. Just fucking unacceptable. Hey Adam, how you doing? Global research pointed out during the last election, as an opponent started to gain popularity, RT became noticeably more in favor of Putin and against the opponent. They had like charts and graphs. RT became no more. Yeah, that's not that surprising. Like, I mean, come on. Like, we still accept that RT is state-run propaganda. Like, Noam Chomsky made a point fairly recently that what's happened in America for censorship is worse than what happened in the Soviet Union, right? Like, Noam Chomsky's not really a fan of the Soviet Union, right? So for him to come out and say that the level of censorship that's happened in the United States is worse than what occurred in the Soviet Union is pretty telling, right? It's pretty shocking, in fact, and it's true, right? Like, the Americans have banned RT. They've scrubbed any of that kind of Russian television. Soviet Union didn't do that shit. You could get access to the BBC. You could get access to the German radio waves if you wanted to. If you wanted to hear what your enemy was saying, right? Because in the Soviet Union, they understood. Oh, these guys are Nazis. Like, we know what they are, right? We're not going to be like, oh, these Nazis, yeah, they've got a point, while they commit these fucking open genocides that they argue in favor of. Putin was installed as a Russian president by the Americans. Yeah, I can remember Putin and Blair palling around in London. Yeah, exactly. Like, Putin, hey, damn boxes, thanks so much, bud. Thanks so much, bud. I appreciate it. Another $2.99 from damn boxes. Oh, here's ad break. Good time for an ad break. Click. Hate to do it. Hate to do it. Let's get through. Didn't Navalny say Muslims were vermin and something awful like this? Yeah, I don't know genuinely that much about Navalny, right? Like, I'm not like a Navalny expert, but I'm just like, I'm not like aghast, I guess is the word to use. Kolomoisky is an oligarch and also Jewish, but he funded part of Azov and right sector. Well, you're going to find out pretty quickly, like, Zionists and Nazis have a lot in common with one another, right? And again, it comes down to a more class dynamic than a racial dynamic, right? Another question. Are Western communism the same as foreign communism? I mean, the communism in China, Cuba, Vietnam is socially conservative. It's always going to look different. I think that's one thing to understand. And the Chinese do understand this, by the way. That's why they call it socialism with Chinese characteristics. And they've been very wise, in my view, to not declare their form of socialism or their form of communism as the form. That they really have left it open. And the statement is as simple as it must look different. Every culture is coming at this concept and coming at this idea from its own set of principles and this sort of its own idea, right? And so it's always going to do what it thinks is right for itself in order to progress its own society towards this ideal and this idea of communism, right? And it's always going to look different. That's why I don't like the way that Westerners generally critique communist revolutions in the East or in other countries. I feel is that they basically say this is the ideal, and they're not doing the thing that is my ideal, right? Because they're engaging with reality and the reality of their own culture that they themselves know better than you do. Why? Because they live in it, right? They know what their culture is. They know what's happening. They know and they know what the ideal is. They see the same ideal, but Westerners tend to be like they should just do it in a society that's not even attempting to do it at all. So that's the funny part about it. But Westerners don't like to actually analyze the culture and be like, okay, so like, this is the ideal, this is where they are, what's the path? And Westerners never have anything to say on this point because Westerners don't actually care, right? They just kind of want to, like, I tend to actually view this as like another form of white supremacy, that clearly us whites would know how to do this correctly, even though we don't and haven't, and our culture is degrading and falling apart, right? So it's just like backseat quarterbacking to the highest degree, right? And meanwhile, the people who actually live in the culture and who are actually trying to recover mainly from these fucking whites destroying them all the time, are making their way, right? And everybody goes, "That's not how I would do it." Who gives a fuck what you think? Like, who gives a fuck what you think? And most of the time, if you actually like look at their culture and you listen to what they are saying about themselves and their own culture, you can see, oh yeah, they are progressing, right? Maybe they took an unusual path in this particular case, or maybe they're doing this kind of thing that you would think is a tainting of their ideology, like Deng's market reforms, right? There's a moment when a bunch of Westerners went, "That's it, it's over." Well, the Chinese didn't say that. They didn't say it's over. They were like, yeah, we did it for good reasons, right? And we're dealing with the fallout and the consequences. You can take a look at Xi Jinping dealing with the fallout and the consequences. But the end result is still that who's running the show in China? Would you describe China as an oligarchy? Would you describe China as like a country that has been overwhelmed by the billionaire class? I wouldn't. I wouldn't at all. And how would I know that's true? Because they keep fucking executing these guys. Like, yeah, I don't know too many oligarchies that would allow a government to actually execute billionaires. And you can critique the fact that they're executing these guys, but what you can't critique is who's actually running that show. The pro-Ukraine side are literally denying this war. Yeah, they keep acting as if Russia was the aggressor. Yeah, that's just it. That's why I call it the Donbass War, right? Like, I don't call it the Ukraine War. I call it the Donbass War, because that's what it actually is. One has gotten fat off looting and murdering the other for the past 500 years. They're developed different, so their communism will be inherently different. Yeah, of course they're different. Yep, older articles about Ukraine from the West said themselves that there was a Nazi problem, yep. And the only political parties I ever see Putin ban was Nazi parties, yeah. It has to be explained, John. It's weird seeing commies and alt-right on the same side supporting Russia. Hell, it's confusing. You're right about that, dude. And so what you need to ask yourself is why, right? The alt-right is supporting Russia because they view Russia as like this white supremacist utopia, right? That Russia is a majority white country. It doesn't have this diversity culture because it doesn't have a particularly... that's not true. Russia does have a bunch of different ethnic groups and all, but okay. Russia does have a bunch of different ethnic groups, but to a fucking dumbass hick from Louisiana, they all look white. Hey, Milo, come on, dude. I know, buddy, I know. White supremacy. White supremacy! I know, buddy. Okay, you got him. Thanks, bud. So they all look like, so for these like Republican dumb morons, right? They all look white to them. And so they're just like, well, yeah, sure, they've got different ethnic groups, just like we have Texans, right? And we've got Missourians, right? Like, that's how they view it. But what they really love about Russia is that they don't have any black people. They don't have any Latinos, right? Like that's not really there. And so they're like, yeah, white supremacist heaven. And Russia is still a fairly socially conservative environment, right? It's still a fairly socially conservative place. So that's why they're supporting it, right? Whereas I'm sitting here being like, yeah, like, Nazis are bad. We should not be supporting Nazis. And there's a good amount of propaganda going on regarding... The CIA has done a really good job of creating this idea of the Wagner Group. Anytime I look into this Wagner Group, and now there's like a really robust Wikipedia article about the Wagner Group that they created. And anytime you dig into the sources, it's always like Radio Free Asia, right? It's the classic CIA sources, or it's like a source that sources itself, right? these sorts of things. So they've created this idea that there's this Wagner group that actually has all this power that is itself also a white supremacist organization. And I'm like, can I see evidence of this? Like, who are the members, right? And they can never do this, right? It's always just like, yeah, just trust us, bro, right? So yeah, I admit it's confusing, but like, you're gonna find as this moves forward, like, I say of the alt-right a lot, right? A lot, that when they talk about what's going on in the society, they sound like communists, right? Their diagnosis of what is happening is accurate. It's their solutions that are baffling, right? That their solutions are things like, we should just do capitalism harder. This isn't true capitalism. We just need to do real capitalism harder. Meanwhile, I'm like, yeah, that's what got us here, right? Like, we got here with capitalism. And this, in fact, is true capitalism. This is what it looks like. Noam Chomsky is state propaganda. Is he? Is he? I don't know about that. But you know what I think? Wink and thumbs up emoji. I watched the first commercial, but the second one was over. 41 minutes long. What? Who's gonna watch that? Who's gonna watch a 41-minute long commercial, dude? Like, what the hell? I would call it colonialism and imperialism, which are both a form of white supremacy. I don't think China is fully communist, but what I do know is how China is running their country is better than what I see elsewhere, especially in Canada. Yeah, I mean, like, is Wikipedia a CIA op? I don't think that Wikipedia is itself a CIA op, but because anybody can post to it, of course they have CIA operatives. I watched this happen with the Azov Battalion Wikipedia. I watched it happen. That on the lead up before the war and after the war began, the very first thing that the Azov Battalion Wikipedia link would show you is these guys are Nazis, right? It was the first thing on the article, and it was very explicit. It was very there's even been like behind the scenes conversations that happen on the Wikipedia blog where people were trying to remove that information and people were putting it back up and being like, look, this isn't a blog, like this is information, right? And now if you go to the Azov Battalion site, it's been fairly well groomed. The information that they are a Nazi organization is still there, but you know, it's how they do it. They bury it in like paragraph 53, article 4, behind a hyperlink, right? That's how they do it. That's what they did in order to obfuscate the Georgian War, right? To find out what happened in Georgia, what actually caused the Georgian War, to discover that it was a coup funded by the Americans that the Russians responded to. Yeah, coup on their border, right? You got to go through like a bunch of different links and really piece it together until finally you end up on a page that's actually saying, yeah, I guess George Bush did coup that government, right? Zelensky literally says we are one people, one color, yeah. If Chomsky is state propaganda, they wouldn't be pushing him to the bottom while elevating charlatans like JP. Yeah, I think that's the truth, right? Like, I'm not... Yeah, I mean, people say this of Chomsky, right? And it's fair to critique Chomsky. My critique of Chomsky is that when he steps outside of the borders of America, I don't think he's particularly well read. Someone like Michael Parenti has a better view of the socialist and communist world than Chomsky does, for sure. But I mean, again, though, like, what do we expect? Like, Chomsky's a person, right? And we shouldn't elevate him to anything beyond that. I still think he's extremely important. I think the work that he's doing is extremely important and shouldn't be disregarded and should be considered very important. But simultaneously, we can critique him, and he should be critiqued, right? But I don't think that critique should come from a place of attempting to dismiss all of his work, right? Like, you will always find a flaw. You will always find, and honest intellectuals will tell you that their analysis isn't perfect, and people like Chomsky will tell you where they think their analysis can fall apart, right? Someone like John Mearsheimer, for example, right? He's got a theory of how politics works, and he's like, but even he's like, yeah, but it only works like 70% of the time. RT just did a video in the field with Wagner Group, the musicians. I don't know what this is referring to. Sorry, Major. I don't know what you mean by the musicians. Like, they did a video in the field with Wagner Group? Like, Wagner Group is considered a neo-Nazi military organization, a private military organization that has ties to the Kremlin. That's the narrative. Like, I haven't seen anything that particularly convinces me that they exist, because it looks like a lot of CIA shit to me. But how you doing, buddy? How you doing, buddy? All right. Moving on today. We got a couple of numbers in the chat. Let's do it. Let's do the David Lynch. Let's do the David Lynch. Ugh. YouTube, David Lynch, David Lynch, David Lynch. Huh? Usually it's right there. There it is. Today's number. Here we go. We got a 7, we got a 6. I'm in with a 7. Mock, we're going to hit it one day, dude. It'll be a special day when we hit it.
2022. 10 balls. Each ball has a number.
Each ball has a number. Swirl the numbers. Here we go. We got an 8, we got a 5, we got a 9, we got a 6. Got some 7s. Not a lot of numbers in chat right now. 2. Get fucked, everybody. Too bad. Eat it. Eat it. Major, can you find this video and get it in the Discord? Because I would like to see that myself. Like, I want to know more about this group, but anytime I see anything, it's literally like the CIA says. I'm like, okay. Like, can I get a source that isn't like the known lying grifter terrorist organization? Perfect. Thanks, bud. Yesterday was a 2. David Lynch, man, he's getting repetitive. I've seen this one. It's not believable Chomsky is not well read regarding world events. Yeah, but look, everybody has their bias, right? Like that's I think what's the most important thing to understand. And it seems to me, when you look at Chomsky's entire history, going back to his youth, he's always had like an anti-communist view. Always. Right? Like, he's always been against the Soviets. Like, he's always been against communist regimes and all that kind of stuff. Always. But he's never really sat down and done like a really big analysis of them, right? So it just seems to me like his interest, and I think this is the truth, and he says as much, that his interest is on the country that he can do something about, right? And that's why he writes about his own country, and he doesn't write about these other countries, right? And the see a video of Barry Zwicker talking about Chomsky, the shame of Noam Chomsky. But again, like, I don't think it's particularly shameful. Like, everyone's going to have holes and gaps. Like, it's just how it's going to be. And I kind of wish, especially somebody like Noam Chomsky, I wish that when we talked about him and talked about those holes and talked about those gaps, it wasn't with this, like, what a dummy, you know? That's usually what happens. Right? There's usually this just sense of like, how could he? How dare he? Like, instead of just being like, okay, like, Chomsky's a man, he has his own perspective and his own position, he writes about what he cares about, right? And he writes about the things that he wants to, and when he comments on other stuff, he could be wrong, right? And that's, and things are very complex, right? Like, I don't, again, like, when it comes to, like, Chinese politics or Russian politics, Chomsky's not my go-to guy. Right? Because I don't consider him to be particularly well, like he hasn't published anything on the subject, right? Like, why would I default to a guy who isn't publishing anything on the subject and isn't doing research on the subject, right? Sure, he might have read something, right? And he's got an opinion, but so does everybody else. Like, I'd prefer to focus on the people who are actually publishing, you know, articles and shit. And if Barry Zwicker wants to, you know, make his plant his flag on critiquing Noam Chomsky, fantastic, right? But it's not going to make me crumple Noam Chomsky into a ball and toss him into a bin. I feel like Chomsky is an important author who has done important work, and we can simultaneously acknowledge his limitations while taking seriously the things that he's good at. And what he's really good at is the American empire and what it does in the world. My only takeaway from Parenti is his views on China's economic reforms, knowing that the USSR did the same thing with the new economic policy. I don't remember Parenti's views on China's economic reforms. Yeah. Yeah, there was an article in the New York that explains the Wagner Group doesn't actually exist. Yeah, I've seen that too. I can put up with Chomsky because he's quite literally has some of the best indictments of America. Yeah, which is his focus, like his stated focus, right? And he said it over and over again, right? Like he critiques his own country because you can do something about it. Like that's the truth. There's no point, like in his view. There's no point fomenting a big critique of Russia and Russian society and what the Russians are doing because you can't do anything about it, right? That's for the Russians to deal with. And if you want to act as though, well, the Russians should do better, well, then you should do better. Lead by example. Change your own ways, right? Isn't that what these hard right people are always talking about? Clean up your own room. Clean up your own room. Tidy yourself. Stand up straight. Well, that's what Chomsky's doing, which is why they can't engage with him. Right? How the hell did JP become this popular with that voice? Yeah, it just goes to show you, man, like we are in an intellectual vacuum. Like that's what it is. And in my opinion, Peterson is actually popular not because of anything he says, but because the corporate media has shoved him in front of us so much. That's really what it is. Just like constantly shoving them in front of us. What, Eric? What's the source on that article saying the Wagner Group doesn't actually exist? Is it the New York Times? Because if it's like the Global Times, people aren't going to give a shit about it. Barry Zwicker, who was himself a protege of Chomsky and worked on the document manufacturing consent, accused Chomsky of engaging in intellectual dishonesty and using bizarre non sequiturs in his arguments. I mean, yeah, like I feel like everybody is going to do that from time to time. But Cotton, this is the meme that I'm sort of pushing back against, right? Reject Chomsky, embrace yellow Parenti, and I'm more or less saying you can basically hang with both of these guys, like that's fine, while and acknowledging their limitations. And if Chomsky has a moment where he's engaging in intellectual dishonesty and using bizarre non sequiturs, they should be pointed out, right? But like, I haven't seen anything egregious. Like I haven't seen anything on like the Ben Shapiro kind of a level when it comes to Chomsky, right? I was wrong. It was the Foreign Policy. Oh yeah, okay. That's a fairly reputable magazine. So Yeah, Chomsky will be missed when he's gone. And the work he's doing right now, is very helpful. Like, I was saying that, like, the climate change deniers that exist now are the most dangerous organizations that have ever existed, right? That has ever existed. And I'm just like, it's something that I've been saying, and then here comes Chomsky, a respected intellectual, and he says the same thing. And I think to myself, good, great, perfect. That's what we need. We need more and more voices standing up and saying the Republicans and these Christian fascists are the most terrifying organization that has ever existed, and that includes the Nazis. Because even the Nazis weren't attempting to destroy themselves, right? Even the Nazis weren't attempting to kill their own children. Where no will not, Romaline dissented, supports government claims. Oh yeah, like, again, like, I feel you'll... we've had this conversation, Adam. Like, these guys don't want to become, like, the 9/11 conspiracy guy, right? Like, they just don't want to do that. And I think that that's fine. You know? I think that they feel like they've got bigger fish to fry. Just a reminder, this Monday, big protest, Toronto, Bloor and Bedford, front of the varsity track entrance, 4 p.m. Yep. We need to send a message to John Tory. I said Don Tory. Isn't that funny? John Tory, stop the abandonment. Yep. Absolutely. We haven't even really gotten to the articles today, man. We're just like chatting away. I love it. FPMag was also the only Western source that reported on Germany evicting Afghan refugees from their dwellings for Ukrainians. Fucking wild, dude. My issue with Chomsky is not really him, but his reception. I think most people who valorize Chomsky is chasing this idea of anti-authoritarian progressivism. An opportunity for his followers to... Alright, Sandman's over. We're done with that. We're done with Neom. Yeah, acts of compassion now get you branded as some kind of commie. What kind of shithole country am I living in? A fascist one, Jeff. A fascist one. This is literally how I became, like, why I call myself a commie. Right? I literally call myself a commie because I'd be like, people should have access to food and shelter. And people would be like, that's communism. So I'm like, I guess I'm a communist. Reject mass discipline and to avoid having to do authoritarian things in the name of anti-colonialism and anti-capitalism. This does not mean having to betray the freedom vibe. An opportunity for scholars to reject mass discipline. Yeah, like avoid having to do authoritarian things, like have rules and follow them. Yeah, I understand what you mean by that. Not wanting to be a 9/11 guy, then he shouldn't have written a 9/11 book. This is what's so odd to me, Adam. Like you keep complaining that Chomsky's like not like constantly bringing up 9/11 and dedicating his whole life to it, when he wrote like the scathing indictment of the 9/11 Commission. Like, he looked at what the 9/11 Commission did and basically said bullshit, right? So I don't know what else you want from this guy. Nobody should have to live on this. ODSP recipients called to double patients. Yeah, I got that article right here, bud. No. That. Yeah. Like, it's, to me, the true grotesquerie of what is happening is that the ODSP advocates are not in the streets. Like why is it someone like Isabella Gamp and myself? Why are we the ones trying to cobble together some kind of protest? Why in the hell are we the ones that are spearheading this? That to me is the real embarrassment of it, right? That to me is the real embarrassment of it. That it should be these ODSP groups themselves. That they should be the ones spearheading these protests. But it just goes to show you how gulled we are as a people and how childish we are. We're still in this mindset that we don't want to upset daddy. Like, oh, but that'll make daddy mad. That's basically where we're at. Oh, you can't go to people's houses. That'll make them mad. Yeah, dude. What the fuck? These people aren't your daddy, right? These people aren't your friends, right? Like these people are actively abandoning you, right? And the people you claim to give a shit about in your industry, fucking protest about it. And the fact that it's someone like Isabella Gamp, a disabled trans woman, having to like put signs on her wheelchair and constantly hand out flyers and constantly go around and post on Facebook and send emails to people, right? And someone like me who's trying to gather support from people on social media, right? Who's trying to gather support through like Socialist Action and other groups like this, instead of it being ODSP themselves. What the fuck? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, to me, it's just straight up cowardice. There's no other explanation at this point. It's just straight up like they know and they just don't want to. Chomsky whitewashed his critique. That's the issue. Like, how do you mean he whitewashed it? Like, I thought it was pretty condemning of that commission, which was the goal, right? Like, and like most of the people on that commission resigned from it because they were like, no, this is bullshit, and it was. Porky Ford does not care. His priority is buck a beer. Yeah. Porky needs his ham and egg sandwiches at Denny's and Timmy's. Yeah. I've seen what is called Wagner. Whether they are tied to a network, I don't know. I think it's more Wagner isn't what the West thinks. They don't like being filmed much, it seems. I mean, if they are what the West says that they are, which is like a private military group of Nazis, then yeah, I wouldn't want to be filmed either, right? Like that's the part of the Azov battalion that I think is so flagrant, is that they didn't hide. They were very open about it. Like, whereas if I was a group of Nazis trying to get shit done, I wouldn't want people to know about me. I would try to be invisible. Biden administration expected to soon declare monkeypox a health emergency. So this is starting to pick up. For a little while now, I've said I haven't wanted to report on monkeypox because I was sort of the opinion that it could just go away as things do, or any of this. But if they actually declare this a public health emergency, things could actually begin happening, right? And we could have yet another confrontation or another clash within the society about oh yes, I know, buddy. We could have another clash in the society between your anti-vax types, right, and your who are concerned about government overreach and who are concerned about the authoritarian nature of the health and safety measures, versus those who are more concerned about health and safety. Surge in wild monkey attacks, at least 45 people injured in Japan cities. It's happening. The planet of the apes is upon us, gentlemen. It is occurring. The apes are rising against us. Soon they will be armed. They will create their monkey coalition. We will have to fight back for the future of our species. Who knew it would begin in Japan? Although, right, they've got that nuclear radiation. Just saying. Just saying. We don't know how humans gain sentience, right? We don't know how humans gain this. Maybe aliens dropped a nuclear bomb. Huh? think we're onto something here, guys. We're figuring it out. The CDC on Tuesday said it was making monkeypox a nationally notifiable condition, which directs states' public health agencies to use a certain definition for identifying cases and follow a specific rubric when submitting surveillance data to the agency. The move will allow the CDC to more closely monitor the spread across the country. Yeah, I always thought it would be Godzilla from Japan. Yeah, right? Given their movies. The Godzilla narrative makes a lot of sense within the historical confines of China. Like, once you are of Japan, rather. Like, imagine how wild it must have been, dude, to live through what happened in World War II to Japan. Like, and you can have a conversation about like how whether or not they earned it, like to the degree that it should have happened or not. But like, the nuclear bombardment, like imagine the level of helplessness that you would feel living in a society where suddenly there's this enormous monster off your coast. Like, I actually have always found it quite despicable the way kamikaze pilots are glorified, right? There's always this sense of like they're doing it for country or duty or honor or any of that kind of stuff. Like, bro, no. Like, kamikaze pilots are doing that because they're fucking desperate. That's an act of total fucking desperation. That's what that is. That's literally like you've got ships off your coast that are dropping just shell after shell and bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb. Just an endless amount of bombing happening, just flattening your country. Like, you're not doing that for anything other than total fucking desperation. Like, you just want it to stop, you know? If the sun does not kill us, the monkeys will. Yeah, here comes their pox, right? Maybe that's what it is. The monkeys have figured out that we're causing global warming, and so they've unleashed a pox on us, right? But it's the monkey pox. A pox on you, so saith the monkeys. And of course, what are we doing about it? Yeah, we've got an urgent response, right? It's got to be the gays, right? It's got to be the gays. Also, the United States effectively quashed the communists in Japan after the war. From what I've read, communism was very popular after the war. It was the second largest party. I mean, it makes sense, given that the Soviet Union basically wins World War II, right? Like, that's something that I think people today... Like, when I say this to people, I can tell it puts them right on the back foot. They don't really know how to respond because they've never actually thought about it from that perspective. The Soviet Union won World War II. Like, like, the Americans were just sort of the cleanup crew, right? Like, they were the guys that came in after the party was over. Like, they're the guys that came in after the fist fight had happened and then just started shanking people, right? Like, sure, they were on the side of the victors, but they didn't bear the brunt of the war, and they weren't the ones that pushed the line back. They weren't the ones that fucking fought the war, right? The fucking Russians did. The Soviet Union did. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right, guys, I gotta take a break for just a second. Sorry. Be right back. Be right back. Be right back. floating through all over the place. Yeah, the break would have been a perfect time for some ads, but the problem is that when I do the ad break, all it does is insert it, and so you guys, you still sit through the silence. That's what happens. Doesn't matter. How good is this shot? Is Milo in this shot? Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Little guy. What a cutie. Isn't he the cutest? Isn't he just like a little sweetie? Just sitting there. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know that he's famous. Let's just have a Milo stream for 20 minutes. Yeah, dude. Wouldn't that be funny? I like, for real, I could change this into like communist pug. What does the communist pug say? I could get him a little hat. Get him one of those little Soviet hats. Right? He'd be sitting here. He could be the chairman pug. Right? I've actually thought about that with a cat. Right? You could get a cat and name the cat Chairman Meow. Huh? Major's just like, yes. I vote yes. Chairman Pug. So, watch out for monkeypox, guys. I think it's as simple as this. I'm going to actually read this one because it's the Canadian perspective, right? With 745 confirmed cases of monkeypox in Canada, Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam says that an urgent response is required to address the outbreak and is encouraging those at the highest risk to get vaccinated. Our understanding of this virus is still evolving, and this declaration makes clear that the situation requires urgent global response, she said Wednesday. Citing the World Health Organization's recently declaration as monkeypox as a public health emergency of international concern. As of Wednesday, according to the Public Health Agency of Canada, there are 346 cases reported in Quebec, 326 in Ontario, 58 in British Columbia, 12 in Alberta, 2 in Saskatchewan, and 1 in the Yukon. What we need right now is actually those in the highest risk groups, including gay, bisexuals, and men who have had sex with men, take up the vaccine in order to protect themselves with others. The viral disease, often presenting as a flu-like infection with a rash, spreads through close personal contact with those who have a symptomatic case. This can occur in a few ways. Contact with lesions or scabs found on skin, or mucosal. What is this word? What is this word? The moist inner lining. Mucosa. Mucosa. What? Mucosa. Mucosa. Dude. The moist inner lining of some organs and body cavities. Gross. Gross. Contact with lesions or scabs found on the skin or mucosal surfaces such as eyes, mouth, genitalia, and anus. Contact with an infected person's bodily fluids such as blood, saliva, and semen, and contact with contaminated objects or shared personal items such as bedding, towels, toothbrushes, and utensils. So this has like a real like AIDS epidemic kind of quality about it, right? It says the virus may also spread through respiratory particles from talking, breathing, coughing, sneezing, but scientists are still gathering information. We're at a sort of infancy in understanding the spread of this outbreak. Yeah, man, like, it's gotta be something, eh? Something's gonna get us eventually, right? I hope it's something that it has a silly name. That's what I really hope, right? I hope it is something like the monkeypox, right? communist pug needs to fly to Scotland to beat up that fascist pug. Is someone using a pug for fascist principles? How despicable. How disgraceful. Pugs would never tolerate such disgrace. I have an NFT of that monkey. It's mine. You have no legal right to it. Delete it now. I gotta sue you. NFTs. Fucking NFTs, dude, man. That shit pisses me off more than anything else. Like, the more I think about NFTs, the more fucking mad I get. They're so stupid. Fuck you, NFTs. Fuck you for existing. So, Count Dankula, the guy who made his pug Sieg Heil. Did he do it as like a joke? Because it's really easy to make a pug Sieg Heil, right? And it's funny. Like, you can like, you squeeze a part of their leg and their arm does it. It just does it. And so it's like, I can see why you would want, or not want, but I can see why you would make a joke of that. Like, is he being serious, or was it just a stupid joke? Trudeau spars with farmers on climate plan, risking grain output. Like, yeah, well, I could do it right now, for sure. It's like one of the first things you discover about having a pug. There's like a place you can squeeze them, and they do it. It's the truth. Trudeau spars with farmers on climate plan, risking grain output. So this is going to be the next big clash that the Conservatives are going to constantly raise. I am of the opinion. Here, let's read the article, and then I'll give my view. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's push to accelerate the fight against climate change is sparking a showdown with the nation's farmers, who say it's threatening food supplies and their profits. The government is proposing to cut emissions from fertilizer 30% by 2030 as part of a plan to get to net zero in the next 3 decades. But growers are saying that to achieve that, they may have to shrink grain output significantly at a time when the world is scrambling for more supplies. Also at stake is the estimated $10.4 billion that farmers could lose this decade from the reduced output. The tension comes as efforts to cut carbon dioxide emissions related to energy are lagging, so policymakers are increasingly looking to other sectors, including agriculture. Climate targets on nitrogen in the Netherlands, for example, spurred protests from farmers worried they'd be forced out of business. Cattle and fertilizer are key sources of nitrogen emissions. Angry Dutch farmers brought cows to Parliament, threatened to slaughter them, and blockaded food distribution centers serving major supermarkets. If you push farmers against the wall with no wiggle room, I don't know where this will end up, said Gunter Joachim, president of the Western Canadian Wheat Growers Association, which represents growers who farm about 3 million acres. Just look at what's happening in Europe, in the Netherlands. They've had enough of it. Production losses could be significant, according to an analysis commissioned by Fertilizer Canada. Canada could lose over 160 million metric tons of canola, corn, and spring wheat between 2023 and 2030 due to the plan, according to the report. That's nearly double Canada's expected grain production this season. Agriculture emissions have soared in recent decades as farmers apply more fertilizer to increase output. Emissions from crop soils rose 87% to about 7.6 metric tons of carbon dioxide over 3 decades through 2020, according to the latest data from Environment and Climate Change Canada. By comparison, emissions from oil and gas extraction more than tripled by 69 metric tons of carbon dioxide in the same period. Farm groups say the additional fertilizer is resulting in more food. Spring wheat yields rose more than 40% in the last decade through 2020, compared with the 1990s Statistics Canada data show. Similarly, canola yields rose 56% over the same period. We are talking about the food supply, said Karen Proud, Chief Executive Officer of Fertilizer Canada, an industry group that represents major manufacturers and retailers, including Nutrien Limited and Koch Fertilizer Canada. Canada is already among the top countries that use nitrogen efficiently. We don't have much room to go before we start affecting yields. While the reduction target is ambitious, it does not represent a mandatory reduction in fertilizer use, and action will focus on improving nitrogen management. Cameron Newbigging, spokesman for Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, said in a statement, "The approach for achieving reductions is still under development, and the government is accepting feedback until August 31st, and will develop next steps in the approach once the consultations are complete," he said. Farmers are already trying to reduce their fertilizer usage because costs have skyrocketed. They're using specialized equipment to apply it more efficiently, wheat growers, Yakum said. Government incentives to offset the cost of new equipment or soil testing could help reduce emissions without jeopardizing food production, said Jim Everson, president of the Canola Council of Canada. I hope there is an ability for the government to listen, said Bill Campbell, president of the Keystone Agricultural Producers. I certainly hope the policies don't become reactionary. Saskatchewan grower Ian McCreary says more education is needed to help farmers cut fertilizer usage. McCreary, a member of Farmers for Climate Solutions, estimates his fertilizer usage dropped as much as 20% per acre after he spent $50,000 into equipment changes and mapping and testing the soil on his farm to determine how much nitrogen he needs. This move probably saved him $20,000 in input costs this year and hasn't reduced yields, he said. We've simply taken nitrogen out of areas of the field that weren't using it anyway, McCreary said. So, a couple of opinions, right? Opinion number one, farmers always complain, okay? I'm from rural Manitoba. I was surrounded with farmers my entire fucking life. Farmers always complain. It's a trope, right? It's a trope. Farmers will complain if there's a big bumper crop yield. Farmers will complain if there isn't enough crops coming in. Complaining is part of the game. It's how they roll. So the idea that they're complaining about this makes me go, yeah, of course they are, right? Because it's something to complain about. That's it. Then, of course, there's a monetary aspect of it, right? That they have seen big gains over the last couple of years because they're using more fertilizer. And we are saying, don't do that. Oh no, we might go back down to 1990 levels of yields. Okay. Right? But to me, the biggest thing that we can point to and say this actually gives these farmers credence is that the Trudeau administration is not confronting the fossil fuel industry. The article says as much, right? Where did it say it here? Yeah, detention comes as efforts to cut carbon dioxide emissions related to energy are lagging. Why? Why is that happening? Because the Trudeau Liberals are bending the knees to the fossil fuel industry. And they're just refusing to do what must be done in order to actually confront this Leviathan, this gigantic monster. Right? And I saw a video just today, like it was a TikTok thing, where somebody was saying, Canada's emissions compared to everybody else's is actually pretty good. But it's like, yeah, because we offshore it. We sell it to other people, and they emit it. Right? That's what the game is. That we sell our oil to other countries who then burn it themselves. Like, that's what we're doing. And I don't accept this narrative that says that because our contribution is smaller than other countries, we shouldn't do it. Like, yeah, it's small. Like, sorry, officer, I only punched him a couple of times, so I shouldn't be charged with assault. Right? Like, get fucked. And we are going to get fucked. I think that's the big narrative here. But because the Trudeau administration is not actually confronting the fossil fuel industry, it means that when they go after other things, it gives them a lot less credibility, right? Like, if Trudeau was attempting to deal with these farmers while simultaneously getting the fossil fuel industry in line and like fucking nationalizing it, like what needs to happen, people I think would be like, they would complain, obviously, but they could always say like, look what we're doing. Look what we're doing. Right? This is a serious issue, right? I think his haircut is intentional, so when some of the worst of the conservative supporters attack him, calling him dumb and dumber, they'll appeal at ableist and turn off other con voters. I do think it's intentional, but I think it's intentional to make him look like an everyman. That's what they're trying to do. They're responding to the Poilievre's upsurge, right? And his appeal to the working class. And they've realized, like, this foofy-haired prince look is not going to cut it. So they're trying something new. And what they're trying is to make Trudeau look like an everyman. Like, trying to humble him up. They don't want to present him as a prince, right? They don't want to put him in front of people. And they're trying to undercut the, like, haughty, arrogant princeliness that he exudes, right? And so what they're doing is they're giving him this dumb-looking haircut. And the liberals, I think when that comparison got made, the liberals that made the decision, the insiders that made the decision to get that haircut done, were like, good, great. That's exact. And I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it was the liberals themselves that sent that around, because like they want that. They want Trudeau to have, like, they would prefer you look at Trudeau and be like, "Ha, what a dummy," instead of, "Man, what a detached rich kid." That's what they don't want. They don't want people to look at Trudeau and be like, he's in this upper elite stratosphere of wealth and prestige. That he's a prince, literally. Right? They would prefer that he is a dumb idiot. I joined Discord. Thanks for the link, John. Gotta say, it was a nightmare. Oh, dear. I can't imagine someone with email-level computer skills getting on there. Seems ageist, not a critique of those using it. Really? Okay. I'm sorry you had a time with it, Adam. Not just bending the knee, but fondling the balls of the oil industry while bending the knee. Yeah, no kidding. Don't forget, net zero by 2050, according to Trudeau. Yeah, dude. All you gotta do is donate to my Patreon. That's all you got to do. It's in the description, right? It's $1. It's $1. If you want to donate more, please do. But, yeah, apparently John needs to eat food. I know, right? Food. Who knew? Who knew? Please consider donating. Like, share, subscribe. Hit the bells, hit the whistles. Here's an ad. Thank you so much for being here, guys. And I say it over and over and over again, and I think it's absolutely the truth. I'm so grateful that you guys are here. You really are the reason why this is good. Like, why I enjoy it, right? Like, people tuning in, the fact that anybody listens to me, the fact that anybody is tuning in and hearing what I have to say, it tells me a couple of things. Thing number one, I'm a cool guy. Thing number two, I think that what I'm saying and the positions that I take are positions that people want to hear. And that they are being chased out of the conversation intentionally. Like, I don't think that my positions are particularly controversial. That's the thing. Like, I root everything I say in a analysis, a material analysis, often using Western sources, right? But we never actually hear anybody talk this way. There's very few sources around. John, you're the only dude that makes sense, and I agree with totally. I'm a simp for life. Thanks, DM. Please don't simp for me, bud. I appreciate it, though. This word simp. I hate that word so much, dude. I hate this concept of simping. Although I understand why it needs to exist. I just am like, meh about it. Canadian job vacancies climbed a fresh record, signaling inflation pressure. So here's an article that's trying to say, oh, it's actually wages. It's empty jobs that are the culprit for raising inflation. Because if you've got these empty jobs, then people have to raise their wages, and if you raise wages, that means you raise prices, right? That's the culprit. Don't pay attention to corporate profits. Don't pay any attention to corporate profits, right? And so much of this is just total bullshit. Like, businesses get subsidies for having empty job offers because of COVID and all of this, right? So they're completely incentivized to leave those things empty, especially if they can get all the work done with a skeleton crew. Take my Discord issue into consideration. It wasn't that hard, but I did used to work in tech support, so someone, if very low skills, who could use Facebook, Twitter, or email may not understand to download, etc. I gotta tell you, Adam, I look at the kind of the small hurdle to get into the Discord as a feature, not a bug. Like, the reason why I'm not just inviting people into the Discord, the reason why I have asked it to be donators, the reason why is that, like, I really want that to be a true safe space for people who are genuinely trying to be part of this, right? And if I can't figure out how to get into Discord is the end of it for you, bye. Like, really. Like I'm not just trying to be an asshole on the internet, you know? Like, I really am trying to build something here, and it's just starting. It's just growing now. It's getting bigger and bigger by the month, right? The line is going up. The only thing that's holding it back is that we're way too spread out. Like, we're way too spread out, right? That, like, there are people from British Columbia, there are people from Pennsylvania, there are people from Kansas, there's people on the East Coast, there's people from all over, and if we were all together in the same city, we could actually do some significant damage. It only really takes 10 people. Like, that's something that I'm learning doing these protest movements and doing this organizing, right? Really only takes about 10 people. You can do a lot of damage. Congrats on 1,100 subs, John. Do I have 1,100 subs all of a sudden? Is that true? I don't think that's true, bud. I think you might be misreading it. Let's take a look. That's fun. I honestly have not been paying attention to it. And I haven't been paying attention to it because it's good for my health not to pay attention to that. Since I hit 1,000. Oh, yeah. Well, glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again. Well. How about that? Well, that makes me feel good about myself. That's nice. Isn't that nice? That makes me feel nice. Wow, actually. That does actually make me feel really good, you know? Because I've been... when I hit 1,000 subscribers... and I got into the monetization game of it. Yep. Growing, well, and growth did slow down over the summer, and I expected that. That's I gave myself permission to not worry about that at all, because I knew it's like television shows don't run over the summer for a reason, right? Because they know that people are going out and doing stuff, right? And it makes complete sense that, like, yeah, people are going to go out to the pub, and they're going to come home from work, and they're going to go out to the park, and they're going to do this. Are they going to listen to me? Right? Maybe, like, from time to time. But the idea that, like, my movement is going to grow in any significant way over the summer, that's not how it's going to work, right? You're going to see your largest moments of growth throughout the late fall, winter, and early spring, for sure. And then once it starts to get nice, it drops off. So, we're hot tip: when you come back from commercial, crank the speed to 1.5 to catch up to live. Hey, there you go, helping everybody out. Not a critique of those using it all. Why is it an app that needs to be downloaded? I think you can do it on. There is a website as well. Like, you don't need to download the app. I have, because I think it's useful to do it that way, but it's a critique of Discord, not you. Word. No, yeah. Like, and I don't know. I just find Discord to be very like, once you understand it, like, once it connects in, it's pretty clean, and it's pretty easy to use. If all proletarians sell themselves or their labor power to someone in exchange for a wage, does that mean that all work, whether physical or mental, is a form of prostitution? Yeah, this is something that's coming into people's consciousness more and more. Day by day, I see examples of this. There was a really, really clean example of this that went through TikTok. Again, I like spend time on TikTok, right? There was a young woman who was talking about being on OnlyFans, and there's this clip of her, and she says, I would rather be on OnlyFans than in the military. And the person she's talking to goes, oh, and she goes, well, yeah, like, you're selling your body to the government, right? And then it clips, and then there's this whole thing where that clip is taken, and then it's a military person that responds to it, and invariably the person is wearing the military garb, and it's just like, you can see that they had never thought of it that way before, and that they went like, oh yeah, like, I'm selling my body to the government, like, oh, and it is a form of prostitution, for sure it is, right? Like, that there's just this, like, the only reason we view prostitutes with this sort of dingy down kind of thing is because of the sexual repression and the hatred of sex that exists within our society. And we obviously have a kind of guilt, shame, and self-loathing surrounding sex in this society. There's no way that you can deny it. Like, what do you think, like, BDSM is? Like, what do you think all of that shit is? It's a way to indulge in sex while also dealing with all of that repression and shame, and integrating it into sex in order to deal with it, right? That and that people who express themselves in the society in a sexual manner need to tolerate others denigrating them, right? That if you walk around wearing skimpy clothing, right? If you go and have sex with a bunch of men, right? You're going to encounter people like this fucking Andrew Tate guy, right? You're going to encounter these guys, that misogynists and chauvinists, right? You're going to encounter them. And not only is that, like, built into the culture, it's venerated in many ways, right? Like, think about, like, political sex scandals, right? Like, politician has a mistress, his career is over. Well, in European countries, the narrative, it's politician has a mistress, and everybody goes, yeah. Like, we're not particularly grown up in this regard, so we look at prostitution as a separate thing, as its own type of thing, because of our childish views of sexuality, right? We're not actually very grown up about it, which is like, you can see that we love it, like you can see that we're all about it. The internet proves it, right? Like it's just that it has to stay on the internet, and it's so suppressed and repressed in our society that we have this like little shameful dark space that we're permitted to go and be like this. But if it starts to actually manifest into the real world, it needs to be beaten back somehow, as opposed to just like accepting that we love sex. Like it's not only that, like that nothing is stupider in our society than when a man looks at a woman or a woman looks at a man and expresses pleasure for having looked at them, and they get called a pervert, right? That if you're someone like Samantha from Sex and the City, right, and you say something like, what a hunk, right, one of her friends will go, Samantha, you're such a pervert. I can't imagine a stupider, more inverted and backwards way of communicating about sex and those ideas. That a straight person who is biologically driven to be attracted to members of the opposite sex expresses that reality, and that's perversion. What the fuck is that? Like, it actually makes me mad when people even do it as a joke, right? When people even do it as like, oh, you little pervert, right? That actually makes me mad. Like, why are you shaming me? Why am I getting shamed? Because a beautiful woman walked by and I went, wow, what a beautiful woman. Oh, inappropriate. Inappropriate. One time, I had a regular customer that would come into one of my stores. And I had a massive crush on her. She was a gorgeous woman. I was desperately in love with this woman. I for sure was simping for this woman. Right? For sure. I was absolutely all about it. And she was very flirtatious. She knew exactly what she was up to. Right? And she would come in and I would fucking drop everything to talk to this woman. Right? Everything to drop to talk to this woman. Right? She was married. I knew nothing was going to happen. I didn't care. Because I just wanted to be around this woman. Because she was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Gorgeous, funny, lovely to talk to. And one day, she leaves after I've had a wonderful interaction with her. And I turn to my coworker and I say, man, what a beautiful woman. That's all I said. 1 week later, I'm talking to human resources. I'm sitting in the basement of the store talking to human resources because I turned to my coworker and said, man, what a beautiful woman. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck that. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, obviously I thought she was a beautiful woman. Obviously I enjoyed spending time with her. Obviously it was a wonderful thing. Is the complaint that I said it to someone? I don't understand what the complaint is. I still don't. Except, like, it makes this person uncomfortable? Well, grow up. Well, welcome to being a fucking adult. This idea that this built-in primal biological drive that exists within most of us, always need to shout out to the asexuals. We love you. You are included. We don't want to dismiss you. Acknowledged. For those of us who deal with this, it's there. And it's real. But if we acknowledge it, talk about it, or engage with it, pervert, shame, guilt. Like, we talk about slut shaming, right? And that seems to be like an exclusively female thing. It's coming out of like the feminists and the feminist movement, slut shaming. But it's everybody. Everybody gets slut shamed. Everybody gets hit with this shit. And it's fucking stupid as shit. Like, the people who are doing it are clearly doing it because they feel they are sexually inadequate. Or they feel like they have a shame or a guilt, and so they're putting it onto you. They're projecting it onto you. And I'm just like over it. Like, I'm just fucking over it. Like, this place could be so much cooler. We could be having such a much better time living in this society. But we're like losers. We're just like incel losers who, like, instead of when someone has a positive sexual experience or expresses themselves in a positive sexual way, going, huzzah, right? Phenomenal, right? Instead of that, right, we act like little weird incels and get all like cringy and gross about it, right? And feel the need to, instead of build up, tear down. Like, it's just like, ugh. I'm so fucking over it. Like, let people be sluts. I don't get this. Like, I don't fucking get this at all. Like, you're starting to see this point kind of manifest itself in comedy. Norm Macdonald, in his last stand-up thing that he did, it was like a podcast thing that he did, he actually said this as a joke. He was just like, I'd like to thank sluts. But, like, what's the problem? Actually. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems to create, like, a weird little culture of oddballs. Just like like people who are scared. Like, we're all scaredy cats. Right? Like, and no wonder, like, there's so much pent-up anxiety and anger, right? Like, not only are we all broke, we can't get laid. And if you try to go out and get laid, well, you're a pervert. What a simp. Right? You treat a lady with any respect and decency. You do something nice for her, buy her flowers or something. Oh, what a thimp. Oh, shut the fuck up. Like, shut the fuck right up, man. Like, if a dude is like pursuing a woman and she's made it clear that he will never get her, and he still does it, then you can kind of be like, bro, like, you're simping. But that's not what we do. It's just another element of why our society is so fucked up and stupid. Just backwards. Completely inverted. Like, inverted entirely. And we just... And the people who stand up and say something about it, I'm sure there's going to be someone at some point that's going to hear me talk about this and be like, what a deviant, what a pervert, What a disgraceful, what a disgraceful individual. Enjoying sex. I do not like people commenting on my looks at work, never had, and it makes me feel uncomfortable when I witness having it done by other people. People are forced to be there. Well, why? Why does it make you feel uncomfortable? Like, if you're walking around saying, "Hey, nice tits, sweetie," right? That's fucking one thing, right? Like, why do you feel the need to not keep your comments to yourself? Not you, the royal you. But okay, but like, if someone's wearing a nice shirt and I say nice shirt, right? Or if someone's wearing nice earrings, or if someone's put on nice makeup, or done their hair nicely, or is wearing cool shoes, is wearing a nice pair of pants, or maybe they just have like a beautiful smile, or a beautiful personality. Should I lose my job? Should I go talk to HR? Like, and why does it make me a pervert? Like, am I hurting people? Like, what's the crime here? Like, for real. Like, it seems to me like we're creating a sucky ass culture. Some people who may be considered less classically attractive might not get those comments, and they are hurt when they never get those comments. I just feel like that's like reaching to the highest order. Like, so we're supposed to suppress our sexuality and suppress our and accept this idea that enjoying like, because of this idea that there are people who will feel bad because they're not getting comments the same as, like, so everybody should just shut up about everything then. Because, like, that kind of logic applies to everybody then, doesn't it? To everything that ever has existed and ever will exist. Right? That, like, everything needs to become this, like, single layer of beige. Because if something is red, it will make purple feel bad. Right? When like, Adam. Everything being like this color of beige, just like a singular color of beige. Oh my god, dude. I just cannot, like, I genuinely think that if that was the case, I would just commit suicide. Like, what's the point of being here? Just like a singular, like, just a one color. Just like everything is beige. Just everything is one thing. Ugh. Blah. So who decides where the line is drawn? Probably the people who are involved in the conversation, I would think. But, like, we've created this culture where we're just actively denigrating it, and it's like become structural. Like, who decides where the line is drawn? I mean, isn't that why we're talking about it? Aren't we all deciding where the line is drawn? I'm just protesting the fact that where we've drawn the line is very, very dumb. Like, but it seems like where the line is dumb. Yeah, I don't even feel comfortable complimenting people I know anymore. Like, listen to that. Right? You don't feel comfortable complimenting people. Like, whoa. So if you say you like my shirt and I'm the one who's in the conversation, you should have no problem with me reporting you to HR. I mean, no, but it just means that I'm never going to compliment you ever again, and I'm just never going to talk to you about it ever again, right? Thereby reinforcing this shitty culture, right? Like that, which is fundamentally the complaint that I have. Like like it's a culture where no one can say anything nice to one another, and no one can actually like reach out and attempt to connect to anyone for anything, right? What a terrible society. Can I? I won't. I definitely won't. Like I'm certainly never going to, like, I'm not going to give a person like that a compliment. Like, I'm not going to reach out to them. I'm not going to say anything to them because, hey, nice shirt means I talk to HR. Okay. Definitely. Like, definitely. Because, like, how do you communicate with people like this? God dang pickup artists. Now we're getting into something that's a bit more interesting, Adam. I've talked to a lot of women about this particular subject, and the feedback was very interesting. There was a piece of feedback that was really interesting on this regard, which was when you compliment like a woman's body part, like her physical body, right? Like the classic, like, hey babe, nice tits, right? Like that kind of lowbrow bullshit. Like, I've talked to a lot of women about this, and their response, surprisingly, was like, it's not a compliment, right? It's not a compliment because, okay, like I was born this way. Like I didn't do anything. It's not something that's intrinsic to my inner self, right? It's not something that I can operate or control, right? It's something I'm born with. So when you walk over to me and say, hey babe, nice tits, all you're doing is telling me that they turn you on, right? So it's not an attempt to compliment, it's an attempt to tell me that you're turned on by me, which, slow your roll, right? Whereas complimenting something that I've done, like makeup or an earring or hair or a shirt or a skirt or shoes or something, well, that's a choice that I've made. I've decided to display myself in this way, and you complimenting that is a compliment on a choice I've made and something that is intrinsic and internal to myself, right? And that's where so hold on. Will you engage in conversation with them otherwise? Nice muscles, John. Thanks, bud. I'm working out. Thanks, bud. Although I'll be honest, I've got that kind of weird farmer strength. When I was a kid, I always had this, like, I was always the strongest kid in my class. Even kids that were like working out like every single day, I would always get them. Right? In like arm wrestles and stuff. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care. Like, I know you're trying to make a point, but it's just like, I like look. I think everybody should like looking good, and I just don't, like, I don't think I understand your point, right? Like, is your point that we shouldn't, like, encourage one another and be nice to one another and say nice things? Like, and I get that there's, like, a dingy element to it, that you can make it dingy, and there is a way to make it dingy. But, like, saying like, hey, I like your shirt, or hey, what a beautiful woman, right? Like that's nowhere even in the wheelhouse. It's not even close. And I feel like it's been extended to that level. Where if you even graze up against the idea that people are at all even potentially at all sexually interested, even a little, you can get into serious trouble. There's like a whole fucking thing. You can like get blacklisted and shit. Like it's nuts. It feels crazy to me. And like lots of people work very hard to look good. Yeah. Right. Good. Right? Like that's my whole fucking point. Lots of people are left out of receiving nice compliments, and overhearing others get nice compliments could make others feel left out, like they are not worthy. But what are we supposed to do about this? Like that's so we should never create art. Like, I don't want to make good art because that means that someone else will not get complimented for their art. Like my art will get complimented and somebody else's art won't get complimented, and that'll make them feel bad. So we should never make any art. Right? You can use this argument for literally anything. We should never create anything ever because my creations will get compliments and other people will not get those compliments, and that will make them feel bad. Right? Like, you complicated someone, you must now report to the Ministry of Truth for re-education. Thank you, Von Schweringen. We're talking about workplace behavior. Well, and the workplace is a great place to talk about because that's where it gets scary. Like, we're talking about people's livelihoods, right? That you can literally strip someone's ability to get food and shelter for saying what? Like, for saying what? Like, nice shirt? Nice, like, what a nice smile. Oh, wow, that's a beautiful woman. Yeah. And like, it's this commodification, which is what we're discussing, right? We're discussing a commodification of compliments. We're like, and a commodification of sexuality itself, right? Like it's to be revolted against. Give me an example of someone losing their job for the minor infractions that you are offering. What? Like, where do you work, Adam? Where do you work? Do you work in a corporate environment? Like, who's your boss? Shit, I just realized that all of my compliments have revolved around aesthetic choices that people have that required effort. I've complimented women and men on their fits or hairdo all the time. Yeah. And I think that most people here you go, Von Schweringen. Tell the story, bud. So big corporate enterprises have HR departments that definitely let people go for this. Like, definitely. Like, there are hard lines that certainly exist. And it's considered completely normal. Like, it's considered completely normal. Oh, so you never witnessed it, so it doesn't happen. Got it. Even though there's a guy who literally is in the chat telling you that it happened to them in 2007. There's a guy in the chat. He's going to tell you the story. 2007. Like, what's the whole fucking Me Too movement, dude? Like, what's that whole thing? Like, ugh. I'm gonna turn this light on. Ugh. Like, do you want me to pull something up? Like, I don't have, like, a source document for you here, bud. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if it's going to come down to source documentation, we just have to agree to disagree. I'm not going to, like, spend a half hour drawing up facts and figures for you. But, like, it's pretty clear. I mean, here's your example. You asked for it. I worked in a large distribution center and complimented a female coworker on a new hairdo. And the next day I got summoned to corporate for the offense. Right? Same story as I've got. Right? Like, and if you don't consider that a threat, like, it's obviously a threat. But not, okay, so that's what you care about, right? Like, it's not good enough that it's a threat, because it obviously is a threat, right? Like, it's got to be that people are getting fired. That's what it is, right? So it's acceptable to threaten people's livelihoods. That's acceptable. And you've got two examples of people. Yeah, there you go. So you've got one example of somebody who was threatened, and you've got another example of somebody who was fired. Right in front of your face. Right now. Was keeping comments about others' appearance in the employee handbook? Oh my God. Yes, corporate master. Whatever you say, corporate master. Yes, I have signed my like. This is literally a straight out example of the exact type of corporate subservience and alienation that we're talking about on this channel generally. That, like, you literally sell yourself to a corporation, and you're supposed to accept this kind of behavior from the corporation because you've subserviated yourself, right? Well, I'm paying you, so it's my time. You behave like I say. It's exactly the purpose of this channel, to revolt against exactly this type of behavior. Precisely this kind of behavior. It's the reason why this channel exists, is to look at this kind of behavior and say, this is unacceptable. And why is it unacceptable? Because it's making us shitty. It's making us a shitty people. And these sorts of things are bleeding into our culture generally. We've even got somebody in the chat, Major, saying he feels odd complimenting people he knows personally. I don't think you've done a good job of clarifying where the line is. Like, do you not feel that the clarifying line, right, should exist socially between people without threats of people's employment and livelihood coming into play? That if someone says, please do not compliment me, I should say, oh, very well. And perhaps then I can have my livelihood threatened if I continue to pursue. Right? If I receive a comment and do not care for it, am I not allowed to ask my employer to speak on my behalf? Like, essentially what you're saying is anyone can threaten anyone's livelihood at basically any moment. Like, it's terrifying what we're discussing now. Like, the corporate culture that exists in our society is psychotic. Right? And when they walk up to somebody and they say, hey, do we got a problem here? Do we got a problem here? Hey, you said this thing. Is this a problem? Are we going to have a problem here? Right? Like, do you not see how this is like a disciplinary action and threatening someone's food and shelter and their livelihood? Because someone said something nice to someone and that person didn't care for it. So we're rewarding the absolute shittiest behavior. The absolute Karens of the world. Literally, that person said something nice and I didn't want them to say it. Like, it's what an intolerable situation. Asking someone to please ask someone not to share their comment. Like, what a sad... Like, the person who reported me for saying what a beautiful woman, I think that that's a sad person. I think that's a sad, sorry individual who is being rewarded for this sad, sorry behavior. Right? I think it's sad that, like, that's the whole impetus of this entire conversation. I think it's sad that we have this intrinsic emotional thing that exists inside of us that we are disallowed to share and express on threat of losing our ability to survive. That's the entire thrust of this. You are not creating a safe space. It is not, you're creating a weird little incel culture of oddballs who can't confront their own emotions. That's what's being created, is a weird little incel culture where if they hear someone say something nice to them and it causes emotions in them and they don't know how to deal with it, they can literally threaten people's ability to have food and shelter with it. It's not a safe space. Like, that's quite the opposite. It's quite the opposite. Like, and especially like over nothing. Right? Like over nothing. Like in my example, I wasn't even commenting on them. It wasn't even, in fact, I was attempting to share something with them, to build a rapport, to have some goddamn humanity, right? To have some just goddamn humanity in the conversation. Can't have any goddamn humanity in the conversation, though, right? That gets chased out the door. You better not do that again, or here's your pink slip, go home, right? Like, Eesh. A workplace is no place where someone should be forced to confront their emotions. I can't think of a better phrase to encapsulate the absolute hatred I have for our opinion of work. The workplace is no place where someone should confront their emotions. We are a fallen, disgraceful people. That might as well be the motto of our destruction. So when do we confront our emotions? Because we're not allowed to confront our emotions when surrounded by the people we spend most of our time with. Right? So no emotions when we are surrounded by the people we are with most of the time. No emotions, not permitted, go home, here's your pink slip, no rent, food for you. No emotions. Right? Like, you're this is like a terrifying reality to me. Like, as people are forced to go to workplaces in order to survive. That's kind of the problem, isn't it? Right? That's kind of the problem, isn't it? A Karen vaccine should not be patented for the good of humanity. It should be free to all Karens. Yeah. Where do we confront these emotions that we have? Who do we talk to about these emotions that we have? Like, when we have them, they're real. They exist. Certainly. They're inside of us. Without a doubt. Like, no wonder people just get blackout drunk, man. Like, just stop the feeling that we're not supposed to have or express. Like, I said, keep your comments, so bottle it up. Don't share that part of your humanity, right? Have less humanity in the workplace. The workplace is a banal, beige place, a safe space that is terrifyingly repressive. You have no control over what's happening in the first place. If you try to infuse any amount of humanity into the conversation, here's your pink slip, go home. I'm not going to live in that world. I'm going to protest against that world. Like, I find that world to be a terrible world to live in. Like, I have no problem sharing my thoughts on others' looks. I do not feel like I cannot share them. Like, good for you, bud. Great. Like, there are many types of fruits in the garden. There are many types of fruit and vegetable and flower. There are many types of creatures in the world. Like, I feel like we're getting into something very kind of like intrinsically human here. Something that is never talked about. Like, there are lots of reasons why people exist. And this idea that we are, like, I mean, honestly, Adam, like, you have already said that you're okay with everything being beige. Like, you get how intolerable that must be, right? Like, you gotta understand that. Right? That, like, obviously everything cannot be beige. Right? Like, maybe you're happy with that, but you understand why it can't be so. Right? Because, like, that's madness. I think it would be madness for most people. That there's just, like, we need color. There has to be more than just this beigeness. And this, like, overwhelming subservience to this culture, this clamped down corporate culture, is in regards to commenting on looks. So okay. So if someone compliments you, what happens? When was the last time someone complimented you, Adam? Maybe that's the better question. When was the last time someone actually complimented you? Because here's a phenomenon that definitely happens as well, is that people don't receive compliments ever, right? And so when they do, they it's like a dam breaking open or something, right? Well, why are there mass shootings? Why is the phrase going postal made? Like, because people explode, right? People explode. That they have no outlet. And so all of this bottled up rage and passion and emotion finally explodes, right? And we don't actually have, like, ways to deal with it. I have received many compliments. I never reported them, but that doesn't mean I don't support others to. Not very nice to have. This isn't a very nice conversation for me, dude. Like, I'm finding this to be a very disturbing conversation, frankly. Like, someone says something nice to someone and they lose their ability to eat food. That's not nice. That's super not nice. Right? You want to talk about not nice. But I did. Because that's what this is. That's what we're actually talking about. We are talking about someone saying something nice to someone, or someone sharing something about themselves to someone, and being threatened to not have food. That's what we're talking about. That's exclusively what we're talking about. That if I turn to a coworker after having a lovely conversation with a beautiful woman, and I say, "Ah, man, what a beautiful woman." Exactly like that, I can be threatened to not have food and shelter anymore. If someone says something nice to someone, they can get a pink slip and go home and not get food and shelter anymore. That's not very nice. And you seem to be fine with that. And I'm trying to find out why? Yeah, we're human. And being overworked makes us gray and dead inside. If you keep it inside, eventually you either destroy yourself or destroy everything else. And it seems like we've created a culture of this, which is what I'm commenting on. We've created a culture of fear, where people are scared to express themselves, right? Forget about even sexually. Forget about even like saying, "Man, this makes me horny," right? Like, forget about any of that, right? But even the way you're talking about it, first time minor infraction. Infraction. Yeah, comrade, I lived under a bridge in Harrisburg after a compliment. I'm still angry over it. Like I said, it's got my blood up. So we're creating this culture of enormous fear where people are literally just keep it to yourself. That's the solution. Kind of akin to just get a better job, right? This sort of unforgiving, brutal ruthlessness that exists within the corporate culture that is clearly bleeding into the society at large. that I don't like. I'm not a fan of it. And why am I not a fan of it? Because it's inhuman. Because it's completely inhuman. Like, once again, we're serving money. It keeps things smooth for our corporate owners, so that's the way it should be. But no. Like, I don't accept this. Just like I simply don't accept it. Just, ugh. What fear? What are you talking about, bud? What fear? You think the fear of, like, you think being blacklisted or losing your food and shelter, you don't think that inspires fear? Dude, what the fuck is this conversation I'm having with you, bud? Like, what the fuck is this conversation I'm having with you right now? Like, you don't think that when HR sits somebody down, like, and literally you've got someone in the chat who you seem to just be ignoring and disregarding, who literally lost their job because of this exact thing we're talking about. And your response to it is, what, fear? What the fuck are you even talking about, bud? Like, what the fuck are you even talking about? Like, the fear of starvation, the fear of homelessness, the fear of being, of losing your social status, the fear of losing your connections to your social group. So you don't believe them. Okay. So he's a liar. Okay. So you just won't confront it. So this is done then. Like, this is a you thing. Okay. Like, oh man. Like, it's just wild to see it laid out like this. It's wild to see it laid out like this. That literally we're having a conversation with examples that you asked for. And it's just, I don't believe it. Okay. Why not? Why not? There you go. You got another one. Man, we're fishing. It seems like this is a ubiquitous thing that happens a lot. Seems like everyone's got one of these stories. Wild. Seems like it's extremely common. Wild. So Eric's also lying? You don't believe it? That's pretty wild, man. That's pretty wild. Just straight up, I don't believe it. Oh, okay. I had an argument the other day that sounded a lot like this. It was the houseless versus hemetlos, homeless. Houseless versus homeless debate. Can you expand on that, Mock? Can you expand on that? What's the difference between houseless versus homeless? Like, I don't even know what you mean. Yeah, capitalism is a beautiful system. Hail Big Brother. Oh, man. There's been a push by some to rebrand homelessness as houselessness. Okay. Seems I don't know, semantic? I don't even know what to think about this. Honestly, like, I would like to live in a world where people could just say nice things to one another. But we don't have a big part of the problem, in my view, is we don't really have any structure or system at all that even attempts. But there are laws that protect people against wrongful dismissal. Okay. We don't really address emotions or sexuality in a serious way in this culture at all, right? And so there's this encounter. Like, we just don't want to deal with it. Like, that's our solution. Is just don't deal with it. You know? And it just doesn't work that way. Like, I wish we were talking more about our emotional selves. From a very young age, I feel like we would talk more about our emotional selves. Like, I know when I was coming up, there was just like, oh, you know, boys will be boys, just deal with it. You know, oh yeah, puberty, it's a tough time, right? Hormones and all that. But I feel like we could do a deeper thing. We could be more connected to our emotional selves. Because that is the core of all of this, isn't it? That we don't know how to communicate with one another about our emotional selves. Like, even forget sexuality even. But like, we don't know how to communicate our emotions and our emotional selves to one another. And that if somebody is an emotional person, they don't necessarily know how to connect to another person who isn't connected to their emotional selves. And there's never any like formal attempt to connect any of this to our understanding, to air it out. It's like literally like comedy shows and shit that we have, right? Oh, Vaughn, I'll be gone by the time you get back. I'm sure of it. People for the change argue that the word homeless carries negative connotations of being dirty and delinquent. Yeah, I mean, I just, it feels like wordplay. It just feels like wordplay, dude. Like, that's where I come down to. Just, because watch what's going to happen. They'll change it from homeless to houseless. And suddenly houseless will have connotations for being dirty and delinquent. You can change the word all you want. Right? You can change the word all you want. There's just going to be a new word. And it's going to have the same thing. right? That's how it goes, right? Like the I wish we had a formal place where we could come and talk about our emotions and connect with one another's rage and anger and love and joy. In a way, I feel like church used to have that, although church is obviously fucked up for its own reasons. Like, we're not dealing with these emotions. And it's just like, it's the Wild West out here, man. It's the Wild West. No, there's a reason why I refuse to work in the corporate environment anymore. Like this is something that I think about fairly regularly. Like, I think I would literally rather be homeless. Right? I think I would rather be homeless than go work for corporations anymore. And this is a big reason for it. Like, you're not a human. There's no humanity. Like, you're always like taking your humanity, putting it in a little box, and then selling your body. And then it's just shut up, don't say anything, stay silent, wear beige. Ugh. Like, nah, bro, nah, I'm good. Like, I'm good. Like, I literally would rather be homeless. Or houseless. Thank you, Mocked. It would be nice to live in a society where there wasn't so much guilt, shame, and fear. Like, why else are people complaining if it's not for guilt, shame, and fear? Like, that's the part of it that, yeah, I mean, that's the fairest thing to say, Adam. Like, we shouldn't be forced to work in the first place. But it still wouldn't change. Like, what is this? Like, what is this? Like, someone says some kind of comment, and this entire time we've been talking, there's just been kind of an assumption that the person who doesn't like the comment is justified in that. Are they? Seems uptight. Seems like they're being rewarded for holding on to fear and shame and guilt. And for expecting everyone else to acquiesce to that fear, shame, and guilt. Which they can literally appeal to a power structure and threaten people's livelihood over it. Like, when I'm standing here being like, man, it'd be nicer if we could loosen up a little bit. Unbutton that top shirt button a little bit. Like, let the hair down a little bit. But there's like this distillation of our humanity. And it seems like it's happened so steadily and slowly that we haven't even noticed that it's occurred. And that it's being drained out. And it's being drained out of all aspects of our lives. Well, no, now you're getting into something, and you and I can agree on this, Adam, which is, if I say something to someone, and they say to me, hey, I don't appreciate that, and I say, oh, I'm so sorry. And if my response isn't, oh, I'm so sorry, shan't happen again, but instead kind of like a dismissal and a continuation, well, then I'm just being disrespectful. And now we're getting into issues of consent, right? And I actually have a firm belief, very strong belief, that if that consent matters more than anything, right? That which I think you and I both agree, we're being forced to work, and I don't necessarily consent to it. And I would prefer not to be forced into the situation. And here's a clear example, very easy, right? The trans conversation. Someone changes their name, changes their pronouns, right? Well, okay. So that person used to be Bill and now wants to be called Jennifer. And they ask me and they say, well, it would be disrespectful of me, right? And if that gets pursued, and if that kind of disrespect continues occurring, then I think you can escalate these things. Let me ask you regarding Von Schwinger's comment about people going postal. You said it's because people lose it, take a position uptight. Well, why are they uptight? Why are they uptight? I think there's a lot of answers for that. I think there is straight up exactly the thing we're talking about, which is this general fear and shame and guilt that exists within, and the reward, right? And the reward for maintaining that fear and that shame and that guilt, and that we don't have outlets, and we don't actually address what's manifesting that or what's driving that. There's a real bottle it up, tough it out kind of attitude that exists. And it is something that I think we should get through as a people. It sounds to me they're more than happy to Me Too people who are nobodies, but upper echelon top dogs get away with blatant sexual abuse. Yeah, look at Blizzard, yeah. That was a really heartbreaker, man. I love Blizzard games for a time. Well, they're not the same company anymore. They're releasing trash now. It took people raising a huge stink to finally hold Blizzard's top dog accountable. Yeah. No, if you have wealth and power, you can get away with anything. I mean, take a look at fucking Jeffrey Epstein shit, dude. Like, you think any of those people are going to be ever held accountable? No. Like, they have the list. This is the thing I think about all the time, right? Like, in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, there was a list of people that were presented, like, to the judge, but it was kept from the public, right? So they have this list. They know who's on it. The public doesn't. Like, are any of those people being pursued? Is there anybody gonna go to trial for any of that? No. Why? Why not? Why don't you think so? Hey, comrade, think Epstein is dead? Yeah. I know that there's this, like, conspiracy going around saying that Epstein's death was faked, but no. No, that guy's dead. For sure. He committed suicide. Alright, guys. I think we've reached the end of this one. This is a lively one. No hard feelings, Adam. When I get into tussles with people, I like to always come back around and be like, no hard feelings. I hope I haven't insulted you. If I have insulted you, I do apologize. That's never my intention to insult. So all the love that I have Activision, they make Atari games? I don't know where Atari is now. Might be in Activision. Anyway. Always remember, guys, you are a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.